Welcome to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back, guys. It's been a rough week. Last week, we're gonna dive into the key levels that I want to see holding for Bitcoin and ETH, and there's several other altcoins that I still have exposure to, and that I also have some key levels for. We are sponsored by Backpack Exchange, and season 2 is about to launch. I don't know exactly when this will happen, but I would assume it's going to be a couple of weeks. And season 2 means more regions opening. So if you couldn't register or do the KYC and get on the platform, you're probably going to be able to in a couple of weeks' time. If you sign up with Backpack using my referral link, you're going to get 20% discount. So I love the exchange. There's definitely a lot of great features there, and they're improving every day. So please come check it out, and we're going to dive into Bitcoin. Bitcoin got rejected last week in a pretty brutal fashion. If you live on the 1 hour charts, I honestly was expecting that it was going to just, do a small pullback after a peak above the previous all-time high and then motor up. This week is a crucial week. I would expect that last Friday's selling was end of month selling, and a bit of the crowd like selling may go away, reshuffling, and obviously there was some volatility on equities, and it seems that equities have kind of found a bottom. They're not really selling off that deeply. We're going to show that chart in a bit, but it's still holding key levels there. So essentially, this week needs to be the week where we kind of see a straight arrow from the consolidation here. The weekly level is around 104, so we've dipped below it, but we're holding the key level. And if we're zooming in, a lot of times when you have these kind of consolidations, breakouts, especially when they converge to like a kind of apex, like you see, it's kind of like a pennant. There is this apex here, and a lot of times when you grab like the candle that is the expansion, that's usually a good key level to hold. If you can see that hold, it's generally a good sign. If we're going to continue on the basis of last week's video where I said I'm assuming that we're going to have a couple of very bullish weeks, I think there's no time to spare. It essentially means that this key level needs to hold. If it doesn't, it's going to trade into like this gap that we left behind. And that is, when it comes to Bitcoin, generally not a bullish thing. It's probably going to signal more chop. So there surely is a potential where you sweep the low and then start to motor up, but we have this kind of trend line here that we swept. It probably caught a few people off guard, and we need to see strength this week for my bullish thesis to hold up. Otherwise, we're going to go sub 100, and it's probably going to be a more long drawn out consolidation. In terms of timing, I would expect that if we can be bullish this week, then next week and the week after is going to be bullish into like the mid of June, maybe the week after, where we're going to start seeing the next type of consolidation. This could be at 117, which means, if the next 3 weeks brings us to 117, that's, I would say, particularly weak. But if we can get to like 130 or to my main target of 144 around ish, then I do think that after a bit of pause, we're going to see like a mid-July, end of July into my volatility point in August, where we could actually see a blow off top occur. Could also be that, that this comes up here, that we kind of motor up in here and we consolidate and we just peak above this. But that's the kind of timing that I'm assuming. And this could very well be a mark of the cycle, the short-term cycle top, where we're going to see a ton of volatility into September, August. That's going to be short-lived, but very, very sharp. Potentially giving back all the profits that we made here, and all the progress. So that's my kind of view on Bitcoin. And then if we grab ETH BTC, in my opinion, is poised if it can hold the level here, 0.238, to, at minimum 2338 here. Maybe retest the weekly at 2287, but that needs to hold for this consolidation to be a continuation pattern. Could it sweep the low here? Yes, but I wouldn't be a buyer of the sweep here, because maybe by that time Bitcoin is so bullish that ETH is just going to be lagging. So that's something to watch out for. But there is a chance that the market turns very bullish and then we, come here and then up here, to be decided. This is ETHUSD. This is a bit of a cluttered chart by now, but it's a textbook, in my opinion, a textbook reaccumulation. This is a giant move into preliminary supply. This is where we kind of start to stall out. It became the support here. And then we have this range. Basically, this is the range. And any peak above it has been rejected so far. This was a signal of strength. I was fully assuming that we were going to hold this, and this is where I got cooked a little bit on my positioning, and I got a little bit stretched. Had to manage some high risk buckets. The monthly is key here. Maybe we sweep the little level here, but essentially we want to see this region hold and start to motor out of it to keep the bullish momentum alive, and that should target at least 3200. And if things are very bullish and ETH BTC is also a continuation pattern, that's going to lead to 37, 38, 39. So yeah, all eyes on this week essentially. That's a huge level. So what we want to see is, price kind of swept this semi-trend line. It was not really a trend because it kind of failed, and now we want to kind of see it start to take over. If we're gonna start selling off this week, then I will have to shave off further positions and exposure. Thoughtcoin has been very painful. Ton of stops hit. On a daily, this is the breaker that we want to see holding up. So I'm long from here again. And if the market's going to be bullish, then Thoughtcoin is going to outperform. It's basically the perfect barometer of risk appetite. So as long as this, this was the kind of capitulation and we reclaim 120, I think then there is a good setup. If this gets reclaimed and doesn't become a deviation, but instead powers up, that should be an indicator that the broader market is indeed bullish. EOS, which has been rebranded to A, and I think it's called Volta. It's kind of still struggling to get any bullish momentum, so we're going to have to wait for that to kind of find a setup. I would say, generally speaking, that game should be on if we can kind of reclaim above this level. So I own exposure spot, and then I hopefully can get some futures exposure here too. ETH continues to outperform, but the sad thing is that we're talking about, it's holding up better than Solana. Um, but if the market turns bullish and this level here can actually become a support, then I think ETH is gonna continue on its outperformance, and that ties into this being like a continuation pattern and not a dead cat bounce. Um, if we look at, let me try and find this chart. We're seeing that the Phoenix whale, who generally jumps into the market when there is some price dislocation, has been starting to take profit. Um, if previous patterns are any indication, then that's always questionable, because there's the market has become so much more complicated in terms of financial products and derivatives that are available. So this just doesn't really give the full picture. But if anything is an indicator of the past, this would be the position where we are in. So essentially, um, price is at the continuation of the breakout of 2021 into the final stint of that market. So if history repeats, then this is the time frame that we talked about earlier, where we're gonna see a continuation into July and then a steep sell-off. That just happens to be shown on this chart as well historically. So that could very well be what we're doing now as well. I don't know. That's just something that I found that's interesting. Now we have equities. Essentially, I'm of the opinion that as long as we hold above this region, there's no reason to be bearish. And the expectation is quite logical that if this is a continuation into new all-time highs, then the broader crypto market has to outperform. We have a bit of a geopolitical tension heightening with Ukraine bombing Russia. So we're seeing some strength here. And last week we were discussing that gold is kind of looking to be a continuation pattern, and that the sell-off that I drew like a month ago towards 2800 is not really happening. So I think this is going to be next leg up towards 3800. I'm happy but also frightened with long-term treasuries, because it can't seem to catch a break. It's been selling off, selling off, selling off, and then every rip is being sold off. Key level of 113 on ZB is kind of being rejected right now. So everything here in this chart is shaping up for a possible disaster down the road, which aligns with the August time frame and window. And the other thing that I want to stay long on for now is this is just the most silly. I kind of hate it that I'm jumping on this thing here. But SPX 6900. It's if if equities are in a continuation pattern, this should very well continue. I think anything on the 3-day below 80 cents is probably reason to risk off. But essentially, after reclaiming 80 cents, this is confirmed uptrend. And then this has been the first resistance here, but it seems that it wants more. So I think we can target like 128, 145, 155 if the broader market continues to be bullish. MicroStrategy. I mean, it's swept the highs here. So in my opinion, this is going to try and find a support. We're going to have to see if this week's turns out to be bullish. But if it does, then this is gonna rip to all-time highs. Like, it should at least touch new all-time highs. And I think that is the broader market view. I'm careful that this doesn't turn sour. But if we can see the lower time frame turn bullish, it's essentially holding the weekly, staying within the trend line here, and claiming this level, then I think it's game on. So you could hedge right around here to be on the safe side of it. I think this is a standard ABC correction. One move, and then a 5 down. So this could turn bearish, but I think if you claim this, then it's game on, and we're gonna power into the higher levels that we discussed at the beginning of the video. So essentially, that's a little, yeah, that's, I don't know. I'm not as convinced of the bullishness as I was last week, which is kind of sad because price is lower now, and it should very much, be a buy opportunity. But I'm also witnessing that, I want to see evidence of price being bullish instead of just blindly being bullish after this ugly rejection. And I think otherwise market is going to humble me too much, and that's, generally a painful experience. So I think fingers crossed, and key level for Bitcoin is holding 103 at minimum, and essentially holding the weekly level 104 here is where I want to be on the safe side. Essentially, this weekly level needs to hold. So we did the right thing last weekend, closing above it. We'll see. Otherwise, we're going to turn down here, and things are going to turn a bit more sour than we would like. So let's see. I don't know. I'm gonna keep an eye on the market this week, and for now, there's no reason to be bearish, but there is caveats here. So I hope we're gonna get this leg up, because otherwise it's gonna be like such a weird cycle. It's gonna be the weirdest cycle ever. So yeah, I hope that made sense. And next week I hope to be the bearer and the bringer of good news, being higher. All right. Cheers, guys, and see you next week.